everyone, my name is Erica Wood and I'm from the Hopkins County Extension Office and I'm back with another video. So today I'm going to be talking to you about another pretty easygoing houseplant. So, it's still pretty cold outside and we're not really doing a whole lot of outdoor gardening right now. So I thought it would be good to kind of showcase some plants that we can grow in our homes right now. And so the plant that I have right next to me is the Chinese Evergreen, also goes by its genus name Aglaonema. And I love Aglaonemas because they are very much kind of the very stereotypical office plant, because this plant can tolerate like neglect and low light conditions that a lot of people will grow this in office spaces, or you might even notice them like outside in like entryways of conference halls or businesses or places like that. So the cool thing about Aglaonemas is they're known for their foliage. They have just beautiful, absolutely astounding foliage. And so it really gives you kind of this nice tropical, lush, vibe, honestly. And, the leaves are going to vary depending on the cultivar that you get. Most of the kind of older, more traditional Aglaonemas kind of have more of that green coloration, with some kind of silver striping or mottling or spotting, things like that. But then we're getting into new cultivars, honestly, that have white margins and spotting, or red margins along the leaf edges, and pink colored leaves, and just so many different colors imaginable. And so you really can buy a whole lot of different kinds of Aglaonema. Something that I would keep in mind though is I do tend to believe that kind of those more traditional greener varieties do better with the neglect or the low light conditions that we'll talk about here in a minute, versus the newer cultivars with all that coloration. In order for them to keep that beautiful coloration, that beautiful spotting or mottling or striping, they need to be in brighter light conditions in order for it to maintain that variegation, honestly. And also sometimes like, they might just need a little bit more care than kind of more of your greener varieties. So those are just something to keep in mind, is greener varieties tend to do better in the lower light conditions, whereas the colorful varieties really need to have brighter light to maintain that coloration. So something to keep in mind there. So let's kind of talk more about light. So Aglaonemas can really survive well in low light conditions or artificial light conditions, honestly. The only downside to putting them in lower light is eventually they kind of become what I would say leggy. They become very elongated and their stems like really start to expand and extend, and they'll typically drop their bottom leaves, and so it almost becomes kind of more of this tree-like appearance. And so if you want it to kind of maintain that bushiness, maybe keep it in brighter light, or eventually when like the stalk gets really tall, you can actually like snip it off. And as long as you have as long as it's a clean cut and you have several nodes, you can actually put that stem cutting into the soil, and it will root. There also are some Aglaonemas that will kind of produce pups that will form kind of pups at the base of the plant and kind of spread that way too, although it kind of depends on the variety you're getting for that. So again, to kind of repeat, will this do well in low light? Yes. It may become a little more straggly with age the longer it's in low light, kind of trying to search out that sun, but it'll survive. And then if you give it brighter light conditions, more direct sun rays, then it may grow faster for you and might maintain its bushy appearance a little bit longer. When it comes to other things like humidity and watering. Could this benefit from more humidity? Absolutely, but it's pretty laid back. So, you know, you can put it in a more humid environment, or it can tolerate lower humidity too. Watering's pretty straightforward. You're going to water it when the soil feels dry to the touch, when you go down 1 to 2 inches in the soil and it feels dry and the soil's a lighter appearance, okay? And that kind of goes into some of the problems I see with Aglaonemas, is that people tend to actually overwater this plant, and it could actually develop issues like root rot diseases. And so you might notice that more often, like it might be losing its leaves faster or yellowing faster. And then eventually, unfortunately, like if you start to see that the stem at the bottom of the base is becoming mushy, or you were to take it out of the pot and it would have really mushy brown leaves, that could be a sign of like a rot disease. So you just want to be mindful of overwatering. You know, if it feels moist to the touch and the soil looks darker, then just leave it alone until it completely dries out, okay? And sometimes too, when the plant's stressed, the plant may actually bloom for you. Sometimes they can bloom even like sometimes in brighter light they might bloom for you. But you know, they have that stereotypical aroid, spathe, and spadix, and they're really not very aesthetic. I would cut those blooms off because they're really not doing anything for the plant other than putting all the energy to that flower, when really you want all the energy to go to the foliage and to the leaves. So kind of cut those flowers off. And so, you know, hopefully it's not stressed, but sometimes I have seen plants that are stressed flower, kind of like, again, this like survival mechanism, like as a last resort, I need to bloom to try to reproduce. So just kind of watch that. Let's see, any other things? You know, I don't see a lot of really disease or pest issues. You might get an occasional leaf spot disease and you can just kind of trim the leaf off. Really nothing major there. Could you get maybe occasionally like a spider mite issue or something? Yes. You know, so just kind of monitor for that. But really for the most part, these tend to don't have a lot of issues. The biggest thing I see too, other than like I said, kind of overwatering issues, is also like changing them or moving them to a different location. Okay, so like if you're purchasing them from the garden center and you're bringing them home, they might actually have a little bit of transplant shock, even though they're pretty easygoing. Or if you're moving it from a different location in your house, you know, to like say a different window or something, I do find that when these are moved, that they tend to kind of drop their bottom leaves for a little while until they become established. So if you start to see some of that bottom leaf yellowing when that's happening, you know, I think that's relatively normal, and just let the plant adapt to its new environment, most importantly. You may also see that too if you're transplanting it to a new pot as well. It just may need to acclimate in that new container for a while. So just know that this plant may, you know, change. It may drop some leaves, may have some yellow leaves as a result of environmental changes to it. But really, other than that, great foliage plant, instant greenery for your home or office, and relatively easy to care for, and so many cool varieties out there. So with that said, hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.